Filmmaker Woody Allen said, 80% of life is about showing up. However, real accomplishments comes from what you do with the other 20% once you're there. Lynn Hurley, founder and president of Hurco Technologies, not only showed up, but through perseverance and a drive to provide the best in his business, achieved much more once he got there. Over the last 30 years, this Harrisburg, South Dakota developer and manufacturer has become the nation's leading innovator and developer of equipment and services for the maintenance and repair of water and sewer systems. How he got there is what this story is about.
And so I went out and started looking at buying equipment. I was pricing things out, and I went to the local case dealer, and in fact my first tractor backhoe was a case. I ended up buying it from the dealer there. But that dealer was also a dealer for my boss. And of course the word got back to my boss that I'd been in there looking at equipment, and he came out to the job site and actually stood on my, we had a trench box in the trench, and he stood with one foot on the bank and one foot on the trench box, and he looked down and he says, "I understand you're starting your own business," and kind of caught me off guard. And well, I couldn't lie about it. I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it." And he said, "Well, you're done today. You know that." And I said, "Yeah, I guess I do." Yeah, so in the middle to late 1970s, we were doing a project called Silver Valley in Sioux Falls for the Dunham companies, and it was the first big PVC pipe job in Sioux Falls, and the job required that it had a deflection test, which was fairly new. We had a problem, and the problem was the pipe was out of round and beyond what the specifications called for. And it was kind of a serious situation because the sewer lines on that project were buried deep, and then we went in afterwards and we put in the water lines and storm sewer lines, and so there was a lot of pipelines in these trenches, and the city told me that I needed to dig that pipe up and replace it, which was ridiculous. It was something that would have bankrupted my company. So I agonized over this, a lot of sleepless nights, and literally one day, and I tripped over the idea. I was stopped at a local equipment store in Sioux Falls. I was looking at this piece of equipment. It had a couple of unusual brass things bolted to it, and I just making small talk with the salesperson there. I said, "You know, what is that?" He says, "It's a vibratory cement screen," and it's like this light bulb came on. And I said, "Well, those little gold things, the vibrators?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can you show me how one of those works?" So I had this idea of creating a bullet-shaped vibratory device that I could pull through the pipe and maybe round it back out. We built this bullet that conformed to the inside diameter of the pipe. And then I hired a company with a big wrecker to come in with the cables, and we jerry-rigged some pulleys up, and we pulled this device through the pipeline with the vibrator going, and it came out the other end, and the pipe was fixed. We did this late at night because we didn't want city engineers to know what we were doing. It was kind of a covert operation, and it was late, it was dark out. We pulled it through, we were successful, and I took the crew out, bought them dinner and a few drinks. We celebrated because we knew we had a solution for this problem. And then the next day or two, I drove up to Minneapolis to a patent office, and that's when I made my first application for a patent on a product. The way that whole process started after I got decided I was going to get into manufacturing, I needed dealers, and I didn't know how to find dealers. I knew who the dealers were in Sioux Falls, but I didn't know how to find them anywhere else. And so I had this idea that I would go look for them. And literally what I did my first trip is I got a map out, and why I chose Boston I have no idea, but I did. It was my direct route to the East Coast, and I drew a straight line from Sioux Falls to Boston, and then I drew parallel lines on either side of that line 60 miles out, and I circled all the cities in that corridor, that 120-mile corridor. And when I went out to Boston, I tracked dealers on the north side of that, in that north corridor, north of that center line. And literally what I did is I'd drive into these cities, try to find a contractor, and I'd ask the contractor who he bought his equipment from, get a name and address, and then I'd go and call on those people. I don't recall how many dealers I signed up on that trip, but I signed up a few. And that's what kind of got us going. And those first few years, I drove a lot of miles, probably 100,000 miles a year or so, just going out and finding dealers, zigzagging back and forth across the country. And now I have over 800 dealers worldwide. So. For starters, you know, I grew up in that industry. When I got out of high school, I was right in it. So I understood the problems and the things that needed to be done on a job site like this. So when we came up with an idea, we had a pretty good idea at that time that it was going to work. That doesn't mean to say that I didn't have products over the years that just flopped and weren't sellable, but you pick up on that pretty fast and you just drop it from your product line. And we tried a lot of things, and I continue to try a lot of things, and not everything works, but once in a while you stumble on something that does. I was in Minneapolis having lunch with a dealer and several of their salespeople and the president of the company, and we were talking just gibberish, you know, it's small talk like you would over a lunch. But then as we got into lunch, they started talking about projects that were coming up, potential bids that were going to be out there for pipe and valves. This was a pipe and valve company. And they were talking about a mandate in the state of Wisconsin for valve exercising, and there was apparently a bid coming up where they required a valve exerciser. And at that time, they represented a company that made a valve exerciser, but it wasn't a very good one. It was a bit overpriced and hard to sell. And while we were sitting there, it's like the light bulb came on. One of their key salespeople, John, looked at me and he said, "Do you think you could come up with an idea?" And I said, "Well, I really don't know what these things look like or where to start." I started thinking that there had to be a better way. And the one thing that stuck in my mind, and I remember this distinctly, back in the early 70s, like 71 or 72, when I was working for a different contractor, one of the guys I worked with, Dick, was this amazing backhoe operator. He could make that backhoe do things that were unimaginable. But what stuck in my mind was how versatile a backhoe is, reaching in and around things and being able to swing around. And got this idea of mounting a valve exerciser on the end of an arm that was similar to a backhoe. And we experimented. We built one. I sketched this all out literally on a napkin on my way back from Minneapolis, and brought it back to our shop and sketched the idea out on a chalkboard or eraser board in our break room. And my shop superintendent at that time, he looked at it and he said, "You know, I don't know if that's going to work." And I said, "Well, we're going to build one and try it anyway." But over the years we were able to improve on that design and make it better, and eventually computerize it so we could data log all the information that we were collecting in the field while we were working these valves. By the way, that process is called valve exercising, and they call it that because you're opening and closing the valves periodically to make sure they stay in good operating condition. And now that's become a requirement nationwide. You know, you really do have to keep your eyes and ears open and look at better solutions. You know, a lot of people would look at something and say, that's good enough. I don't do that. If I see there's problems, I try to figure out a better way to do it. And I do keep my eyes and ears open. But the one thing that what I've done that's helped me over the years is I've made sure that everybody I do business with, and this goes right down to the end user, my dealers, my representatives, the end users, I let them know that regardless of what your situation is or what your problem is, call me. Because I might have a solution, we might be able to build the solution, but at the very least, I might know somebody who can help you. And what keeps me on track is the drive to make sure that it always is the best equipment out there and to maintain our reputation. You know, for years, we had a reputation for having equipment that was flawless. I mean, we never had warranty claims ever. And I'm proud to say, to this date, we've never had a products liability claim. And that's not by accident, that's by design. And so we're constantly looking for ways to improve our equipment. We're constantly looking for ways to make it safer. Have we had issues? Absolutely, and we've figured them out, and we've fixed them, and we make them better. And so there's a constant drive for me to be the best that there is in the industry,